The Sol system had never been this busy. Hundreds of trade ships floated between Earth's massive orbital gates. Cargo haulers from the Empire carried rare metals, food, and alien luxuries. Human freighters returned with technology, medicines, and strange artifacts from distant worlds. The constant hum of docking signals and chatter filled the void. It was a normal trade day. Until the warning sirens sounded. Without any build-up or announcement, the gates began to move. They were colossal steel and alloy rings, each big enough for a dreadnought to pass through. For centuries, they had stood open, a proud symbol that Earth welcomed all. But now, with a deep mechanical growl, the rings rotated. Shield plates slid into place, layer after layer. A loud voice echoed in every frequency. Attention, all vessels. Earth's gates are closing. No further entry. No exceptions. Shock spread instantly. A Shaltari merchant captain screamed over the comm. What is the meaning of this? My cargo will spoil. A human pilot, carrying ore from the asteroid belt, asked quietly, "Did we go to war?" I thought peace was holding, but no one had answers. The only thing they saw was the once inviting gate now sealed with armored plates. Glowing with hidden energy, the Empire's nearby patrol fleet, stationed for security, hailed Earth. "This is Imperial Command." The alien officer's voice was sharp. "You will reopen the gates immediately or face military action." There was silence from Earth for a long, tense minute. Then came a calm reply. No more entry. No more trade. No exceptions. The line went dead. In the outer orbit, a convoy of Imperial frigates moved toward the gate. Their orders were clear. Approach. Demand entry, and if refused, force it. The lead ship activated its weapons, energy cannons glowing. But before they could fire, the space around them shimmered. Every ship's lights flickered. Consoles went black. Engines shut down without a single shot being fired. The Imperial crews panicked. What is this? We've lost all systems. They drifted, powerless, and then, with no visible source, each ship was pushed gently away from the gate, like a leaf carried by a silent wind. Inside Earth's defense headquarters, the mood was grim but controlled. Admiral Reyes stood over the holographic map of the Sol system. Red icons, Imperial ships, clustered like a swarm outside the gates. "First wave disabled," reported Commander Imani. "No losses on our side." "The M-Web worked as planned." Reyes nodded, but didn't smile. "This is just the beginning," he said quietly. On the Empire's capital world, news of the closure spread like fire through the streets. Merchants protested, fearing ruin. Military officials demanded action. The Emperor himself called an emergency council. Earth was a small power in the galactic view, useful for trade, yes, but never a threat. Yet now it had shut itself away, and done so with technology the Empire didn't fully understand. Back at the gates, alien traders begged for answers. A four-eyed Farlian captain pleaded over the open channel. "I have human passengers. Please let them through." But the gates stayed silent. Some ships turned back, afraid to anger Earth further. Others lingered, hoping it was a mistake. But deep down, every captain knew something had changed forever. On Earth, ordinary citizens went about their day. But in every home, the news broadcast the same images. Imperial ships drifting helpless in space, the gates sealed like giant, unblinking eyes, and the president's short statement, "For too long, we have been open to those who would harm us." That ends today. No explanation. No details, only the promise that Earth would stand alone if it must. The galaxy had always believed humans were dependent on trade, that without the Empire's protection and markets, they would collapse. But as the hours passed, it became clear that Earth had planned this for years. The gates were not just barriers, they were weapons. And somewhere deep within the planet's defense network, unseen systems were waking up, systems designed not to hold the line, but to win. By the time the sun dipped below the horizon, the Empire had already dispatched a larger fleet toward Sol. The Emperor believed this was just human arrogance, that a show of force would reopen the gates in days. But the truth was far more dangerous, because for the first time in centuries, Earth was not asking permission, it was giving orders. And the galaxy was about to learn what that meant. The Imperial Senate was in chaos. Holoscreens flashed urgent messages, each carrying fragments of the same impossible news. Earth has closed its gates for centuries. Humans had been considered a minor race, traitors, mercenaries, and innovators, but never rulers. Now their sudden defiance sent tremors through the heart of the Empire. In the great city of Varelia, capital of the Galactic Empire, alien citizens filled the plazas. Merchants screamed about ruined contracts. Freighter pilots cursed their empty cargo holds. A blue-skinned Kalvari dignitary shook his head, speaking to a cluster of news drones. This will not stand. Earth cannot survive without us. They will crawl back, begging for trade. But there was uncertainty in his voice, and for the first time in decades, no one laughed at the idea that humans could be dangerous. In a quiet corner of the Senate building, whispers carried through the shadows. Senator Vurok, a seasoned strategist from the Rylac sector, leaned toward his aide. I remember a human saying from the old wars. He murmured, when the gates close, war follows. The aide frowned. Sir, you can't believe they mean to fight the Empire? Vurok's gaze was grim. Not fight, boy, something worse. Prepare for it. Back in the Sol system, the Imperial ships that had been disabled now floated under watch from unseen drones. The drones broadcast one repeating message in dozens of languages: leave or be destroyed, even the most defiant. Captains ordered retreat, their crews shaken by the invisible strike that had shut them down in seconds. But retreat did not bring comfort, it only fueled the rumors. In the outer colonies, taverns and spaceports became hotbeds of speculation. Some said humans had uncovered ancient precursor technology. Others claimed they had allied with rogue AI fleets. A drunken pilot swore he had seen a human ship blink out of existence and reappear inside a blockade. And then there was the most dangerous rumor of all, that Earth no longer needed the galaxy at all. On the Imperial homeworld, the Emperor's council convened in a sealed chamber. Massive golden pillars reflected the flickering light from holographic projections of the Sol system. The High Admiral slammed his clawed hand on the table. This is a bluff. They are traitors, not warriors. One decisive strike will break their arrogance. But the science minister disagreed. The technology that disabled our ships is not in any Imperial database. We do not understand it. That is concerning. The Emperor sat silently, his 6 eyes fixed on the rotating image of the sealed gates. When he finally spoke, the room went still. No more speculation. We will send the first expeditionary fleet. News of this decision leaked within hours, because in the Empire, nothing stayed secret for long, and as it spread, so too did the unease. The Empire had fought many wars, crushed many rebellions, but it had never faced a foe that shut itself away willingly. That kind of enemy had nothing to lose. Meanwhile, deep within Earth's own command centers, leaders monitored the growing unrest across the galaxy. Admiral Reyes stood beside Commander Imani as streams of intercepted alien transmissions filled the screen. They're scared, Imani noted. They should be. Reyes replied, every message, every whispered conversation among alien worlds was carefully recorded, because Earth was not only defending its borders, it was studying its enemies. Far from the capital, on the outer rim world of Theraxis, a small rebellion stirred. Its leaders met in a dimly lit bunker. If the humans can resist, why can't we? Asked a scarred Triner commander. A smuggler from the human colony of New Kyoto leaned forward. Because you don't have the gates, he said simply. But, his voice dropped to a whisper, we might be willing to share some of what we know. Eyes widened around the table. It seemed Earth's defiance was already inspiring others. In the Imperial intelligence offices, analysts scrambled to make sense of the human move. Charts of trade losses covered entire walls. The numbers were staggering. The Empire was bleeding billions of credits daily. One young officer hesitated. Before speaking to his superior, "Sir, what if Earth planned this years ago?" The older officer scoffed. No one plans for this long without making a mistake. But deep down, even he wasn't sure anymore. The Emperor's voice echoed across the galaxy in a formal broadcast. "My subjects, do not fear. The human insult will be answered. The Empire will not tolerate defiance." The speech was full of power and certainty, but the cameras could not show what only those in the chamber saw: the faint flicker of worry in the Emperor's eyes. In the darkness of space, the first expeditionary fleet began its slow approach to Sol. Thousands of crew members aboard colossal battleships sharpened their weapons. They expected a quick victory, but the veterans among them remembered the stories from the first encounter with humans, stories that had been buried in imperial archives, stories where small human ships had fought like cornered beasts and won. As the fleet advanced, the galaxy held its breath. In markets, palaces, and rebel hideouts, everyone asked the same question: what would happen when the Empire knocked on Earth's locked door? No one knew, but one thing was certain: the whispers had begun, and whispers had a way of turning into storms. The first expeditionary fleet reached the Sol system's outer edge under the shadow of silence. No human transmissions, no challenge, no warning, only the steady glow of the sealed orbital gates in the far distance. The fleet's commander, Grand Admiral Torvak, stood on the bridge of the flagship Iron Talon, a vessel the size of a city. To his crew, Torvak's presence was as immovable as a mountain. But even he felt a quiet unease gnawing at him. The plan was simple, at least on paper: approach the gates, transmit the ancient imperial override codes, a relic from the early years when Earth had been brought under the Empire's rule, and force the gates to open. If that failed, a coordinated strike with concentrated plasma fire would burn the locks apart. Torvak knew the humans had technology, but he believed in the weight of the Empire's firepower. No one in history had stood against the first expeditionary fleet and survived. The fleet advanced in perfect formation. Destroyers and cruisers flanked the great dreadnought. Carrier wings swarmed overhead, their fighters in tight V-shaped patrol lines. Thousands of crew members waited at battle stations. It was a display meant to intimidate, but the gates simply floated there, cold, unyielding. The stillness was unsettling, like walking toward a fortress whose defenders refused to even look at you. "Transmit the override codes," Torvak ordered. The CUM officers obeyed, firing encrypted strings of data toward the gates. For a brief moment, there was a flicker, a faint blue shimmer across the gate's surface. Some of the crew cheered, thinking the locks were responding. Then the shimmer changed. It wasn't opening, it was scanning. And it wasn't just scanning the gate's surroundings, it was scanning them, all ships. "Cut transmission," Torvak began, but it was too late. The gate's glow intensified, and suddenly the fleet systems began to shudder. Sensors went dark, targeting arrays shut down. One by one, entire ships lost power, drifting like corpses in the dark. The silence of space was broken only by frantic voices over internal comms. "Engines offline. We've lost navigation. Weapons unresponsive." A single Imperial corvette managed to keep partial control. Its captain tried to reverse engines and pull away, but an invisible force gripped the ship. It spun slowly, helplessly, until it faced the gate directly. Then the corvette's hull began to heat. Strange, glowing marks etched themselves into the metal, as if burned in by a brand. When the glow faded, the marks formed a single phrase in both Galactic Standard and dozens of alien languages: "Go home." The corvette's crew was shaking when they broadcast their last message. "This isn't a blockade," the captain's voice cracked. "It's a warning." Moments later, the corvette's engines were disabled too, and it joined the graveyard of drifting ships. Torvak ground his teeth, staring at the lifeless shapes of his fleet. He had been in 100 battles, but never had he faced an enemy who struck without showing themselves. No ships, no fighters, no visible weapons, only the silent, merciless will of the gates. "Signal for retrieval teams," he ordered. The fleet's auxiliary craft moved to collect escape pods and assess damage. The humans hadn't destroyed a single vessel. They had simply stopped them. It was a message in itself. We can end you without firing a shot. Far away, in the Empire's capital, the incident reports arrived within hours. The Senate chamber erupted into outrage. "How dare these primitives defy us with such arrogance?" roared Senator Ulvox of the Drowlin worlds. "This is an act of war." But others in the chamber looked uneasy. If the humans could disable a fleet so easily, what else were they capable of? In a smoky tavern on the mining moon of Arvos, spacers swapped tales about the incident. Some swore the humans had tapped into Forbidden's precursor weaponry. Others claimed it was the work of sentient A.I.s hidden deep in Earth's network. A grizzled freighter captain said quietly, "They've been planning this for decades. You don't build gates like that without expecting someone to try and break through." Back in the Sol system, Earth's Defense Command watched every moment through high-orbit surveillance platforms. Admiral Reyes studied the recordings, pausing on the image of the branded corvette. Commander Imani leaned forward. "They'll send more," she said. Reyes nodded slowly, "and next time they'll come ready to bleed." Inside the secret chambers beneath the United Earth Government complex, political leaders debated their next steps. Some urged opening limited talks to avoid escalation. Others argued that now was the moment to strike deeper into the Empire's influence, to show not only strength, but dominance. The president spoke last, her voice calm but final. "We've closed the gates. We hold the line. No matter what comes." The first expeditionary fleet limped back toward Imperial space days later, towing damaged ships behind them. The marks burned into their hulls were visible across entire docking bays. "Go home." It became a phrase whispered in fear by Imperial civilians, and for some, in quiet defiance against their own rulers, it became a spark of hope. The Empire had expected to intimidate Earth into submission. Instead, they had tasted a power they couldn't explain. And deep within the Empire's intelligence cores, one analyst wrote in a secret report, "If they can do this to the first expeditionary fleet, the gates are not just closed, they are impregnable." But the humans knew something the Empire didn't. This was only the first warning. The real fight hadn't even begun. The silence of space shattered as the Imperial war drums beat through encrypted fleet channels. 3 full battle groups surged toward Sol space, their formation a moving wall of metal and firepower. At the center sailed the dreadnought Bloodfang, a monster of black alloy and crimson plating. Its hull bore the scars of 5 victorious campaigns. In its shadow, smaller destroyers and cruisers moved like loyal hounds. Each one bristled with enough weapons to level a city. From the Bloodfang's command deck, Grand Admiral Torvak returned, humiliated from the first intrusion and hungry for redemption. The failure still burned in his memory. This time, he would not underestimate the humans. The Emperor had given a direct order: break their gates, burn their defenses, and bring their leaders to me in chains. The fleet's advance was a calculated storm. Stealth scouts raced ahead, mapping every asteroid, every faint energy signature. Fighter wings patrolled the perimeter in tight sweeps. The Empire wasn't just coming for a fight. They were coming to crush an idea, to show the galaxy that no one, not even Earth, could defy them and survive. In Earth's Defense Command Center, the alarms were already flashing. Multiple warp signatures detected. Commander Imani reported, "They're in high formation. Approach exactly like our simulations." Admiral Reyes stood still, eyes fixed on the tactical display. "They want us to think they're predictable," he said, "but predictable fleets hide surprises. Stay sharp." High above Earth, the gates waited. Their armored layers shimmered faintly as the web, the AI-controlled electromagnetic field, powered to full capacity, Cloaked drones began to stir from their hidden perches on asteroids. And station hulls. They were silent watchers, invisible to enemy sensors, every one of them linked to the war mines deep in the cradle. They would not act until the perfect moment. As the Imperial fleet neared, the Bloodfang's gunnery crews locked onto the gate's coordinates. Energy readings spiked as plasma cannons warmed. The lead destroyers surged forward, weapons hot. The command came swift and merciless. Fire! The void lit up in a storm of plasma and railgun fire. Beams of scorching energy smashed into the outer shields of the gate. Ripples spread across the surface, like a stone striking water. The Imperial crews roared in triumph. Certain the barrier would crumble, but the ripples didn't break. They reflected. The energy bent, arced, and snapped back toward the attackers. One destroyer's shields collapsed instantly. Its hull ruptured in a burst of molten metal on the Bloodfang. Torvek gripped the rail as the shockwave rattled the ship. Adjust frequency. Overwhelm them. He barked. The fleet regrouped, switching weapon cycles to avoid the reflective shield. Missiles screamed through the void. Kinetic shells followed. A brute force attempt to hammer through the defenses. And this time, the gates reacted differently. For the first time since the closure, the gates began to open. Not wide enough for a ship, just a narrow, glowing passage. Torvak's eyes narrowed. They're letting us in? It was a gamble he could not refuse. Forward assault group, take the gap. 5 cruisers and the carrier slipped through the shimmering opening. The instant they crossed the threshold, the gates slammed shut behind them. The void on the other side was nothing like open space. They emerged into a kill zone, surrounded on all sides by hidden platforms, each one bristling with railgun spines. Before the Imperial crews could react, tungsten rods the size of tree trunks ripped through their ships at near-light speed. Hull plating folded like paper. Reactors went critical. In less than 90 seconds, every Imperial vessel inside the trap was dead in the water. From the command deck of the gate's defense hub, Reyes watched the destruction with an unreadable expression. Recover nothing, he ordered. No survivors. No wreckage. Send it all into the sun. Drones swarmed the remains, towing crippled ships toward the burning heart of Sol. Outside the gates, Torvak realized the truth. The humans hadn't opened a weakness. They had set bait. His fury boiled, but retreat was impossible. If he turned back now, the Empire would brand him a coward. Full barrage. He roared, all ships, destroy the gates. The Bloodfang led the charge, unleashing its super-heavy plasma lances. The void glowed white-hot. The gates trembled under the onslaught, but instead of shattering, they came alive. Panels unfolded like the petals of a steel flower, revealing the spines. The first volley hit a battlecruiser broadside, punching straight through its armored heart. It spun away lifeless, inside the Empire's fleet. Morale began to crack. Veteran captains who had fought countless battles felt something they hadn't in decades. Fear. Every move they made was countered instantly. Every formation they held dissolved under precise strikes. The humans fought without showing a single manned warship. It was as if the gates themselves were alive. Hours later, the battlefield was littered with drifting wreckage. The Bloodfang, wounded but still operational, limped away under heavy escort. The cost had been catastrophic. 2/3 of the fleet gone, hundreds of elite crews lost, and the gates still stood, glowing coldly in the dark. In the quiet aftermath, across the galaxy, news of the defeat spread like fire. On Imperial worlds, unrest began to swell in secret rebel cells. Hope flared. For the first time, the Empire had been met in open battle, and had not won. In Earth's war room, Reyes turned to the Council. They'll come again, he said. But the galaxy has seen what we can do. And deep in the cradle, the war minds processed thousands of simulations because the next time the Empire struck, Earth intended to make it their last. The Empire had always been a monolith, a structure so massive and deeply rooted that no one dared to imagine it could fracture. But the defeat at Earth's gates was a wound too deep. To hide within days, images of the wrecked Bloodfang and drifting Imperial warships spread across shadow networks and rebel channels. The Empire's propaganda arm tried to suppress them, but like smoke, the truth slipped through every crack. On the mining moon of Varlis, workers gathered around flickering holoscreens in the dust-choked bars. They watched replay after replay of the spines tearing Imperial cruisers apart in seconds. Some cheered openly, others sat in stunned silence. An old miner with metal implants in both arms muttered, "If the humans can stand against the gates, maybe we can stand too, on the agricultural world of Helven, where farmers lived under the thumb of Imperial tax enforcers." A quiet act of defiance began. The harvest tithe was due, but the people delayed their shipments. One farmer explained to another in hushed tones, "Earth said no. So we say no." It was small, but in an empire where fear ruled, small sparks could set fields ablaze. In the capital, the Senate chamber seethed. Hardline loyalists demanded an immediate second assault on Earth. "We cannot allow one world to humiliate the Empire," barked Senator Ulvox. But other voices, cautious ones, began to rise. "What if Earth is not alone?" asked Senator Verok. "What if they have allies we cannot see?" The thought unsettled the chamber, because if that were true, the Empire might be facing not a single rebellious world, but the first sign of a coalition. Meanwhile, Earth's intelligence networks worked like veins of quicksilver through the galaxy. Agents disguised as traitors and diplomats whispered into the ears of alien leaders. Some were promised weapons, others safe havens for their families. A message repeated in many tongues: "The Empire can bleed." You've seen it yourself, in the shadows of the Rim. The rebel fleet of Captain Dreven met with a human envoy. Dreven's ships were old and patched together, their crews desperate. The human agent placed a small device on the table between them. A portable disruptor, no larger than a coin. "It can shut down an Imperial ship's systems in under 30 seconds, the agent said. Dreven picked it up. His eyes gleamed. "With this, we can take their patrols apart." Back in Imperial territory, the mood shifted from fear to paranoia. The Emperor's intelligence service began arresting suspected dissenters in waves. Whole districts on restive planets were placed under lockdown. But every crackdown only fueled more anger. Rumors grew that the Emperor had ordered the destruction of an entire colony suspected of aiding human agents. The whispers spread faster than the truth could be controlled. In the fortified chambers of Earth's Defense Council, Admiral Reyes and Commander Imani reviewed intercepted transmissions. Multiple outer rim sectors are on the edge of open revolt, Imani reported. Reyes nodded slowly. "That's the real victory," he said. "We didn't just win a battle. We gave the galaxy permission to resist." Not all turmoil was in the far reaches. Even inside the Empire's core worlds, cracks began to appear on Velth Prime. A hub of shipbuilding for the Imperial Navy, workers went on strike for the first time in generations. They demanded shorter shifts, higher pay, and an end to the military drafts. Imperial enforcers tried to crush the protest. But this time, the crowd didn't scatter. They stood their ground, chanting, "Earth stands, we stand." Across the galaxy, independent merchant guilds began rerouting their trade. Instead of docking at Imperial-controlled stations, they risked smuggling goods through uncharted routes to reach Earth's allies. Credits flowed into the shadow economy, and the Empire's tax coffers began to thin. A subtle but dangerous shift, because an empire without wealth could not sustain an endless war. In the Emperor's private war council, the atmosphere was poison thick with tension. The High Admiral slammed his fist on the table. "We must send the Grand Fleet. End this before it spreads further." But the finance minister hesitated. "Half the galaxy is watching. If we commit everything and fail, the Empire will shatter." The Emperor said nothing for a long moment. His 6 eyes glinted with fury and calculation. Finally he spoke. "Then we will not fail." Meanwhile, in the Sol system, Earth watched. The chaos unfolded like a carefully tended fire. The gates remained closed. The war minds monitored every rebellion, every riot, every stolen shipment, when needed. Small human strike teams appeared briefly, delivering supplies or intel to rebels, then vanished without trace. They did not try to claim credit. They let the uprisings carry their own banners. The galaxy was shifting. What had once been a single, unbreakable empire was now a landscape of unrest. And the seed that had grown into this turmoil was a single act, the closing of Earth's gates. In the quiet war room beneath the United Earth Government, Admiral Reyes looked over the reports and allowed himself a thin smile. "This," he said to Imani, "is just the beginning." The galaxy was no longer the same. Trade routes once thought eternal had withered. Imperial fleets that once sailed, unchallenged, now moved cautiously everywhere. The shadow of Earth's defiance hung heavy. It had been months since the battle at the gates, but the shockwaves still rippled through every star system under the Empire's reach. On the imperial capital world of Varelia, the Senate chamber was a battlefield of words. The hardliners shouted for the Grand Fleet to launch a final crushing blow, but the moderates argued for negotiation. Even some loyalist senators whispered that the cost of another war could break the Empire completely. Senator Vuruk stood before them and delivered a simple truth. If we attack and lose, the Empire dies. If we make peace, we might still survive. Beyond the glittering towers of the capital, unrest had grown into open rebellion on the mining moon of Varlis. Imperial banners were torn down and burned. On Helvan, farmers refused to send a single crate of grain to the core worlds, and in the shipyards of Velth Prime, production for Imperial warships had slowed to a crawl under constant strikes. The Empire was bleeding from 1,000 small cuts, and the wound that started it all still sat at the heart of the Sol system, the sealed gates of Earth. In the hidden war room beneath the United Earth Government complex, Admiral Reyes studied the galaxy-wide reports. Around him, the council members sat in tense silence. Commander Imani leaned forward. "The rebels are asking for more than just supplies now," she said. "They want us to recognize them as independent systems." Reyes looked at her, his expression hard but thoughtful. "If we do, we stop being a symbol. We start being a government." Dr. Helena Kaz, the weapons architect, spoke next. "We have the technology to defend them. But the more we stretch our hand, the more the Empire will push back." Reyes nodded slowly. "And yet, the more we do nothing, the more the moment slips away." It was a dangerous choice. Stay as a quiet symbol of defiance or step forward and actively reshape the galaxy. Meanwhile, far from Earth, in the border system of Theraxis, a secret meeting took place. Human envoys sat across the table from rebel leaders of 6 different species. The air was thick with tension. Some aliens still looked at humans with distrust. The memory of centuries under the Empire's propaganda was not easy to erase. But the envoys spoke plainly. "We are not here to rule you. We are here to make sure you can rule yourselves." The offer was clear: weapons, training, and intelligence, in exchange for coordinated resistance. Word of these talks reached the Imperial throne room within days. The Emperor listened in silence as his spymaster recounted the details. When the report ended, the Emperor rose from his seat. "Summon the peace delegation," he ordered. The spymaster's eyes widened. "My lord, you mean to negotiate?" The Emperor's voice was low, but it carried the weight of inevitability. The galaxy must not see us defeated again. Weeks later, an Imperial delegation arrived at the Sol system. The gates did not open immediately. Instead, a single message was transmitted. "State your purpose." The lead Imperial envoy, a silver-skinned diplomat named Seraph, spoke with measured words. "We come under the Emperor's flag. We seek a ceasefire in terms." Inside Earth's command center, Reyes listened carefully. This was the moment he had known would come. The council debated for hours behind sealed doors. Some argued to reject the offer and keep the Empire bleeding. Others saw an opportunity to secure Earth's position before the galaxy shifted again. In the end, a decision was made when the gates finally opened. The imperial delegation saw a sight they had not expected, not a desperate planet begging for peace, but a world alive, thriving, and guarded by a defense network beyond anything the Empire could match. Sereth bowed slightly. On behalf of the Emperor, I present the proposal for a non-aggression pact. The negotiations lasted for days. Every demand was measured against the reality of the galaxy's unrest. In the final agreement, the Empire recognized Earth as a sovereign power. More than that, Earth gained the right to control who could pass through its gates. It was a concession the Empire had never granted to any world before. When the treaty was signed, the galaxy took notice. On rebel worlds, celebrations erupted. The idea that the Empire could be forced to acknowledge equality was no longer just a dream. On imperial worlds, the treaty was met with stunned silence. And for some, shame. For the first time in centuries, the Empire had been made to bend, but Earth's leaders knew this was not the end. The Empire was wounded, not dead. In the war room, Reyes spoke to the Council. We have our gates, we have our freedom, and now we have the chance to change the galaxy. Commander Imani met his gaze. Then let's make sure the next order is one we write ourselves. Beyond Sol, the whispers began again. Only this time, they were not whispers of fear. They were whispers of possibility. Because the day Earth locked its gates, the galaxy had seen the impossible happen. And in that moment, a new galactic order began to take shape.